Hey everybody, it's here. We've talked about it for upwards to a year, close to it, but it's
2 years.
2 years. 2 years. It's out. It has happened. That's Star Wars, Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Here for our review, non-spoiler first. This is Ian here, along with Chris.
What's up? Here we go.
Man, wow. The hype level for this film is somewhere I put in Avengers ballpark, or more. I'd say more. Just given.
Oh yeah.
Given
easily.
Yeah. Given the history of Star Wars, given the fan base, and everything else, and really cool. You know, I did manage to catch this one with family. In fact, I had family that specifically requested, "Do not go see this without us." They waited. My dad's came in town. My mom was here, and they really wanted to see this one with me because they caught Episode 4 for their first date when the film was out, years back. So it was a real moment for them both, because we've actually never all sat down as an immediate family. I don't have any brothers or sisters, but we've never all sat down as an immediate family to catch a new Star Wars as it came out. So getting everybody in the same spot, being able to do that right here for Episode 8 was pretty cool. Made a good moment, and here we are.
Oh, you weren't even a twinkle in your father's eye yet.
Not yet. It's just it's like a Hallmark moment.
Yeah, I was born that year. Now if you don't catch a show every week, The Jagged Edge, what the hell's wrong with you? You should be doing that. But if you're not, for context, I am a fairly big, long-time Star Wars fan. Return of the Jedi was the first movie I ever saw in a theater when I was a little kid. I've caught all these movies in the theater since when they re-released them. The original trilogy, I caught all those. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of canon. I'm not a huge Legends or Extended Universe fan, although I know bits and pieces about that, but there's a massive amount to know, so I wouldn't even say that I know a lot of it. I'm a big fan of canon, though. I like a lot of the canon stuff. Generally a fan of what Disney's done. Now, you are just, you'd say you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I am a Star Wars apprentice, learning Jedi.
I'd say apprentice. I wouldn't say you're a Padawan, but you're a Star Wars fan.
Definitely.
These movies obviously are good and important to you, but you don't delve into the lore. You don't delve into the books, the comics.
Exactly.
You don't have to get the action figures, and I don't have to get those either, not anymore. I had them all back in the day. My brother and I had them all. So you don't follow anything else. You follow the movies. Maybe you catch some of the TV show stuff, some of the cartoons, some of the Rebels, some of the Clone Wars, but you're not like, oh my god, new Star Wars stuff, got to get it.
No, definitely not. Star Wars. I was introduced to New Hope when I was in third grade. Immediately, of course, followed up with the rest of the original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That really sparked my interest there. But as you're saying, it's never something I went to jump and pursue after that point. I sort of waited. I remember when episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out, caught those in theaters. Really, it's all about the mainline series, the mainline history for me. Furthest I went was Nintendo 64. What was it? The Star Wars. What was that one game with Dash Rendar?
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire. I love that game. I had a lot of fun with that. But as far as extra stuff, that's about it.
Right. Okay, so I think we should do things a little bit differently this time. Normally at the end of the non-spoiler section, we rate the movie. I think it would probably be best if we rate it now and then break down how we got to that point.
Cool.
Because you really do have to approach these movies a little differently. Now, I saw this yesterday, and when it came out, you were just hours past seeing it. And with most Star Wars movies, and there's definitely a length of time, depending on the movie and how long it's been since the last one, as far as the, for lack of a better word, the high or the hangover that you have, there generally is one. So you're still, you're just hours into having seen this movie. So you're still on a little bit of a Star Wars high.
Definitely.
All right, mine has worn off. So I think it's gonna be really interesting. So what do you think? Should we rate it first and go from there?
Yeah, I think it'll make a good reverse from what we usually do. So that'd be cool.
Okay. All right. So let's rate it first. So let's go 1 out of 10 porgs. 1 out of 10 porgs.
I thought you were going to say portions for a minute.
No,
Um,
no, that would have been good for episode 7, but no, 1 out of 10 porgs. What would you rate The Last Jedi?
where I'm standing right now, high and all, I'm going to say 8.5 out of 10.
All right, 8.5. I thought you'd actually say a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to go 7.
Fair.
I'm going to go 7 on this. So again, we're not spoilers, so we have to be careful here because this is kind of, you got to be really careful. We're going to do spoilers right after this one, spoilers review, but right now we're not spoilers, so we don't want to give away too much. What are the highlights? What would you say are the highlights for you for this movie?
As far as this is something we'll get into a little bit, is about the pacing in general, where we have the conflict between the rebels and the First Order placed. I really felt this was something that takes first chair. In a lot of Star Wars films, the Imperial conflict is so often, in a way, kind of hand in hand, side by side with the conflicts between Jedis in a lot of ways. And I know it sounds odd. It almost sounds like I'm repeating the theme that you always see. But the way it was played here felt so direct, so well structured, well supported. It never felt like any of that was as much of that one was a side act to another. I think the key word in that being intertwined. Really like that. Also the further character exploration here with Rey really delving and trying to fill in all the dots, figure out Luke, find out his story. Find her place in all of this. I think she really starts to carve that out more about where she stands. There's a few things about that can be argued, but yeah, the way I think that's really my key word in this. The way this all connects, the way it intertwines, the way a lot of the questions that I had coming out of episode 7 were framed here and set up for the next film.
Fair enough. I think I have to agree for the most part. There's actually been a lot of people have said that the pacing in this movie is kind of weird, sometimes too slow, sometimes too fast. It goes from one to the other in a very jagged fashion. I don't agree. I think the pacing on this is done well. I agree with you on this. As far as character advancement, whether I necessarily agree with the path that they've taken all these characters on,
right.
The path that they do take them on is all done really well. In these regards, I think Rian Johnson has done a good job directing and writing out this movie.
Yeah.
In those general sense. I would agree. I think the conflict that is given to us in this movie with the First Order and the Resistance, I think that plays out as well as it could. I disagree with the premise. Which we'll get into specifically with the spoilers review.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with the premise that he has laid out for us, but accepting what it is and the road he's going to take us down. It works out.
Cool.
So, go ahead.
No. As far as I'm stepping outside of general highlights. I think there's a lot of things in Star Wars films that fall under this general umbrella of, nice tight action scenes, some sick space battles, some really good piloting. Those are things I sit aside because you can talk about that in a bit of a separate vein. But the other thing, I'm going to put this as a highlight. I think this could be a key to our discussion later too. Some of the statements about the Force here. And the Force in general, something we saw back in A New Hope when Obi-Wan was supposedly struck down by Darth Vader, which really he just honestly stepped into new consciousness practically. That was a lot more pointed here. I felt in A New Hope that didn't hit me as much because it felt like that had more of a mysticism behind it without as much backbone or as much of an explanation to it. But now that we're sort of seeing this larger lens, this larger picture, especially some of the things that Luke addresses in this. There's some. I actually really like the way this posited the Force, the Jedi Order, and actually answered a few long-standing questions that I had. So,
Oh, just you mean about how the Force is presented in the movie in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Things seemed a little too crazy in the Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Yeah, things seemed a bit more tight and in line with what we know and what we would think that the Force is in this movie. I would agree with that. That being said, we definitely do get introduced to some new Force abilities.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything more about that here. Yeah, so I mean, what do you think of all the new characters? Well, we got Rose,
Yeah.
we got DJ and Laura Dern's character. I forget her name right now.
Mhm.
It's not listed here on the casting list I have either. So we'll just go with Laura Dern's character. What do you think of the new people we got?
Rose, especially, is a real refreshing presence here, and I say that because usually, the grease monkeys, the mechanics, those who are really behind the scenes, working either in the engine rooms or working important functions on a ship, but who aren't a pilot, who aren't Jedis, who aren't Siths, who aren't generals or commanders. We don't always get to see them, or they're sort of just relegated to the back row. I liked her because she brought a very real perspective of someone who has extended family also involved with the rebels, with the struggle against the Empire, what that's meant to her personal life, without dragging us into a 3-hour narrative about it, but also just her, I think her conviction, her resolve, and also the way it doesn't seem like she'd be able to at first of what we learned about Finn, but the way she supports him. Going through the film, and actually the way she ends up ultimately teaching him too. Out of our newer characters, she was my headliner.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm good with Rose. Benicio del Toro's character, DJ, I'm kind of mixed feelings. If this is the last we see of him, which it could be, then this was a waste.
Yeah.
It's a waste of a great actor. And what could be a great character, but it may not. It may not. They really don't tell you one way or the other if we're ever going to see this guy again. The way that it plays out in the movie, if we don't see him again, you can understand that. If we do see him again, I definitely think that they've set something up that could be really good. For me, Laura Dern's probably the best one. In fact, I'm no particular fan of Laura Dern. I mean, I've seen some of her movies. Obviously, everyone knows her from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But she knocks it out of the park in this movie. I had no intention of even giving her or her character any specific attention while watching the movie, but I was kind of just blown away by what she did in this movie.
Yeah, her with what she brings to the screen, I think not just the way she pulls that off, but also the kind of subtle strength she has. Without jumping a whole lot into the plot, she is a real representation, I think, of in this whole struggle, how things aren't always about being the action hero in an X-wing, or blowing up the generator to the Death Star, or something drastic. Sometimes it's one of the most difficult points about leadership. She's stuck in between. I think a couple of different poles. On the one side, it's with her involvement with Leia and the rebels, and also trying to be an inspiring force, but also focusing on survival, trying to drive home to the crew how important that is to, at all costs, keep the rebels whole, to keep the Alliance driving, to keep that going. And others don't always agree with that. Her approach comes into conflict with some of our primary characters, especially those we run into in Force Awakens, and I really like that conflict. But yeah, she executed really well.
And of course, the rest of the cast is doing awesome. I would have to say that there is a standout performance for both Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. A lot of people complained about Carrie Fisher from The Force Awakens. She was probably still a bit rusty. You do not notice it here.
No.
She does an awesome job. Mark Hamill does an awesome job, which was still kind of wondering. Mark Hamill has continued to work over the decades. Not too much live action stuff, a lot of voiceover stuff, but he's got acting chops. But you didn't really see anything. And in fact, in The Force Awakens, his what brief moment he had, you could almost say was a bit too ambiguous. No, I can understand why people would be concerned about how he does in this movie. He's great. Everybody's
Right.
great, and I think I would think that the number one thing that probably carries this movie outside of the $1 billion in special effects and everything is the cast. The
Yeah,
cast is awesome.
they are, and sometimes, at least in some of the other Star Wars films, again, it's really felt that you've got this the heavyweights, the primary characters, and then the Empire and everyone else, and then you sort of have the the lesser characters, or those that'll you won't see in another movie, or that'll be maybe written off after a few scenes. But back to the idea of intertwining, everyone down to mechanics on a ship to Jedi drive and support this thing, and I think the way they managed to pull all that together, all those separate chords, and really make all that go in one direction and make them all matter. Yeah, cool.
All right, so yeah, let's talk about a couple things you didn't like. Why didn't she give it a 10? Why is it an 8.5?
Yeah, stuff that kept me from Max awesome. I'm gonna start with Luke's direction in this. We know that he, especially the way Episode 7 ended, we know that he has become a recluse, that he has sealed himself away from not only the Jedi Order and his duties as a master, but carrying that on, frankly. But with everything that happened with the Rebels, with Leia, he's just on his own. When we actually come to that point, and we pick right back up where we left off with Rey confronting him, attempting to hand him his lightsaber, and his decisions, his reason explaining, well, or not explaining, his involvement. I kind of like how we had to play a little bit of detective, piecing things together through Rey. I thought she made a really good conduit for that. That hit me right off the bat. It just with episodes 4, 5, and 6 as context, especially the ending of episode 6 and all that he encountered, all that he went through, especially seeing Darth Vader himself turn and return to light, return to the path ultimately.
That's a huge spoiler, sir.
Yeah, I know, man. What am I? I'm done. That's it. Yeah, this was supposed to be a non-spoiler, and look what I've just gone and done.
That was 34 years ago. There might be a couple people who haven't seen that yet. You just ruined it.
Yeah.
Darth Vader turns back to the light,
Man.
and he looks like a pale potato head.
Yeah. Story done. But yeah, that really hit me right off the bat. That's strange. I mean, I think
you don't like the path they quite put him on. Is that what you're saying?
Right. At least to that extreme.
I agree.
I don't.
And this is while there are definitely a lot of complaints. This is a fairly volatile movie. Depending on where you're sitting, people are generally loving it or hating it. Almost universally on the negative is the path that they took Luke on.
Yeah.
I agree. Obviously, I'm not going to elaborate any further on that. Touching on that any further would be going into spoilers, but I agree completely. I think as the audience, you got a little ripped off here.
Yeah. You do. We'll cover. Remind me too. We go into spoiler. One of the first ways we get ripped a bit. It's a little bit of a slap.
Yeah.
As far as other things.
Can I just say though, real quick?
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
Through the Jagged Edge, we've talked about this a lot of times. We were talking about updates for this movie. How Mark Hamill has not been happy about what they were doing with Luke in this movie. In fact, he's been very open about it. He even told Rian Johnson when they started working on Episode 8. Still, he's a champ. Whether he liked it or not, he did not mail it in.
And pause on that a minute. That's something that even personally I can really respect. You've had actors in roles of way lesser gravity than this really get out of sorts about maybe small changes or things they don't agree with, or just walk away altogether and just not do it.
Right.
And so, hey, hats off to Mark Hamill. Even though you may have not really liked some of the direction choices for your own character, you stuck with it. You saw it through. You were bold, true to that. I instantly go back to the original Iron Man movie with I'm so bad with names. The actor who played Rhodey originally.
Oh shoot! Yeah, I don't remember his name either.
That is a prime example. I mean, it's fine. It all worked out. I love where we are with Marvel right now. That all ended fine. But that early rough break in continuity, that's something that didn't have to happen, and it was so simple. Just over. Well, I should get a little more for doing this. Like, for goodness sake, you're on Iron Man. Like, I don't.
That's all right. He can keep doing Fox sitcom shows. I'm sure he's happy with that.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm sure after 5 years of that TV show, whatever it is, he probably hasn't made as much money as he would have in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, you could have just,
or Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3.
Or Avengers. Or Avengers 2. Or Civil War. Upcoming Infinity War.
Just all of that. No big. But no. I'd say that's really a main point of contention. And then
there's a lot of weight to that though. I mean, this guy, Mark Hamill, in this character have been together for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
And he's iconically. I don't even think I could even summarize in words how iconic the character is. But we'll see that he's one of the biggest heroes.
Yep.
Of multiple generations.
Yep.
And Mark Hamill's the guy who brings this character to life, and he's been open about the fact that he does not like what you're doing, but he was as professional as he could be, and I think that's huge. I mean, a lot of people would have understood, given the character, him bitching and moaning about it. And he has complained a little bit about it, but he did it. He went 100% in.
Yeah.
So I think this says a lot.
Yeah, and that's rare.
Definitely.
Not just in films of Star Wars size and scope, but in general. I rarely ever hear, let alone see, a story like that panning out, and unfolding, right, and really fully going all in with the brand. So
Hollywood professionalism does exist.
Can you believe it? But now, as you said, there's a lot there to unpack. I think some things to dig into more in later sections, but that does carry a lot. Ultimately, this line, his decisions, and some things his non-decisions impact the story of not just the future of the Jedi Order, what's happening with, of course, the Poes inside the Sith, but the struggle of the rebels. He's both a symbol, I think, outside of the series to fans, but internally within the rebels. Luke has stepped into, both in our pop culture and within Star Wars, to legend status.
Right.
And he carries a ton of weight with the things he does. He is not something to be lightly passed off, and really surprised at the way he just had decided to do that at earlier points.
So what else are you pissed off about?
What else am I raging about? Yarr! We've got a similar point on one. The one thing I'm hovering over a little bit is some of the cloudiness, a little bit of the murkiness we have with decisions, as in and I don't think I could put this quite in character direction per se, because I think we got an idea of where a few are aligned by the end of the story. But so some of what Kylo Ren wants to do, I think, by going through this, really seeing his path, and it's a little. We see what he's cast it to be, but I come out of this really looking at him and saying, what does he actually want? And his ends to achieve that, if he loses a chess piece or so trying to get that, or trying to do that, okay, what do you do after? Do you fly off the handle and just sort of, embrace raw destruction because that's the only thing left to you? Or what do you really, in the Star Wars continuum, this is some stuff that's usually been really nailed down. We had zero question about Darth Vader's intentions early on. In the film, at least we're introduced to him in New Hope. This was the guy. This was the bad guy. Messing with the we see the sparks of hope, and it's slowly built up to where we reach by Return of the Jedi, and that's fine. That works. Emperor Palpatine, never had a doubt about this guy or direction he was going, as well as a lot of the others. And I feel Star Wars is such a big, bold series that when you carve out those large archetypes and you follow them, it does it well, and it gets away with it because they help drive the story so much. If you have any of those primary anchors sort of maybe not just even out of sorts, but maybe not with the full inclusive direction on exactly what they're doing, it puts things in a really weird spot. Part of that, to be fair, I can reserve part of my judgment until the next film. Maybe that could well be something that's rolled in later. But seeing where Kylo Ren is at the end of this, and then seeing where Rey is standing, there's some murkiness there. There's a difference between the two, and I think Rey is the one that comes out a little more defined.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, at least right now. We'll have to talk about that in spoilers.
Sure.
In fact, coming out of this, I kind of realized that this is Kylo Ren's movie. This is really his story. Fleshed out pretty well. Well, I do definitely agree with what you said as far as Vader goes. In fact, probably one of the more brilliant parts of the original trilogy is how George Lucas fleshes out Darth Vader, and where we go from what we know very little of, but we know just enough to be scared to death of Darth Vader, to Pale Potato Head at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
And how we got there. So it's a really well done arc. He tries to recreate this in the prequels. It does a fair enough job. There's definitely some issues with it. You're not seeing that this time. You're not seeing that arc. At least not in the same fashion. It's kind of funny because as George Lucas has openly said that these movies are in some ways supposed to be kind of like the same poem, and they're supposed to hit some of the same hits.
Yeah.
You are not seeing that in this trilogy for 7, 8, and 9. You are not seeing that at all. While at the same time, this is definitely hitting some of the same notes, at least how this story arc is going out for this character. This is something new. So I'm not gonna say anything more on that right now. We'll talk about it in spoilers. Well, what I will say though is, on the topic of some of the story aspects that I did not like, my biggest complaints are in this area. I think Rian Johnson was very lazy when it came to a lot of things. He openly ignored some of the biggest questions that fans had from the last movie. He threw away some of the biggest questions that people had about some of the characters and some of the story-driven aspects of this trilogy. He just threw them away and gave us garbage answers. I alluded to it before. Accepting the premise of where we're at in this movie definitely is a bit of a leap, and I think it's. I think there's some huge gaps in logic as far as where we are. We said it. Luke Skywalker's not done right.
Right.
A lot of people are pointing to the story arc with Rose and Finn and DJ and saying it was completely unnecessary. I disagree. I thought it was a good arc, but it definitely was weak, and you could have saved us about maybe 15, 20 minutes and some more time telling that part of the story a bit better. I think Rian Johnson's a good director. I think maybe he, if he was to do episode 9, he should get a hand in that. I'm very glad. Now I watched The Force Awakens the night before I saw this movie. Some people complain about it. It's almost like it's the trendy thing to do is to complain about the Star Wars movies, the prequels or The Force Awakens, anything but the original trilogy. I disagree. I thoroughly enjoy it. Here we are 2 years later. I'm enjoying that movie almost as much as I did 2 years ago.
Right.
I'm glad J.J. Abrams has taken the helm back over. I do question whether or not Rian Johnson should be doing another trilogy. We'll talk about that in spoilers, though. But yeah, there's some things missed here. There's definitely some areas where Rian Johnson dropped the ball on this story. Now, he directed a damn good movie. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Maybe even one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. And I'm just talking purely on a visual scale.
Right.
The audio, visual, special effects, it's all right where it needs to be. It's all top notch. You have not seen better.
Right.
That's all there, but there are definitely some plot points that are just, they're mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling bad. Mind-boggling bad, I mean. And that's where most of the movie suffers for me.
Yeah.
That being said, not to just stay on the negative of that, this movie does do a good job of building up these new characters and building, it does a bad job of where we're at right now and how we got where we're at right now.
Right.
It does a really good job of planting seeds for the future.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Kind of weird. It's almost impressive that he pulls that off. That this sucks, but what you're doing for up ahead is pretty good.
Right. And part of that falls into, I'm wondering if some of our opinions for this film are going to change in light of what we see later. Or
it's possible.
Yeah, this very well might be connected to something way more important than what we can see, right now with our current scope, which would be, interesting way to take it. But having a cliffhanger in that fashion is, even as someone who's more of a distant Star Wars fan like me, is something I'm not used to seeing in Star Wars. The biggest cliffhanger I remember from the earlier Star Wars, especially with the 4, 5, and 6, was Han Solo being put in carbonite.
Right. It's kind of funny because a lot of people were worried, considering how The Force Awakens hit so many of the same notes that A New Hope did. A lot of people were like, this one better not be a rehash of Empire Strikes Back. I would say that the only thing that is a rehash, while there are definitely some close similarities,
right.
I would say the only real rehash moment is how this movie ends.
Right.
It's definitely, but I'm fine with it. I'm not even going to give it, I don't even knock it for it at all, because this, these movies are being done kind of like how the original trilogy was. The first one was done as an independent piece and an introduction to this world. These next two are done as a part A and part B, and so they're ending part A with God, what's going to happen from here?
Right.
Just like they did with Empire Strikes Back. So I'm fine with it. I don't even knock it for it.
Right.
I'd say the only other strong similarity, and kind of getting, I don't think I'm touching spoilers, it's been all over on the trailers and everything, is Rey going to an isolated area to find a hermit to train her in the Force.
Right.
That is probably the only other similarity. And then, well, except for the part where Boba Fett came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that didn't happen.
Yeah, about that.
Although a friend of mine posted on Facebook, he's like, hey, look at my ticket for Star Wars last night. I'm like, oh my God, you can't wait until you see Boba Fett, and then you find out that he's actually 2 Ewoks stacked on top of each other in that suit. I had so much fun when The Force Awakens came out. I even put a note on my office door. This is a Star Wars spoiler zone. If you have not seen this movie, do not come in my office. People would come in, and I told them, oh my God, I couldn't believe what they did to Chewbacca. They took his whole leg. Like, shut up. Are you serious? I'm like, maybe. Maybe I'm serious. Maybe not. Maybe that didn't happen. You're going to have to go see it to find out.
Troll category.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I'm horrible. I'm horrible with it. Speaking of which, so at the end here, for non-spoilers, what do you think of Porgs? That's what everybody really cares about. What do you think of Porgs?
You first.
Yeah, my happiest moment was, I can't tell you.
Okay.
In all honesty, well, you know what? Minor spoilers.
Go ahead.
Chewbacca eats one, which I thought was gonna be, that'd be awesome if the Porgs watching him, and he's already cooked it. Yeah. It's already dead. He's already sealed and cooked. Let him eat the pork. The pork's like, you gonna eat that?
Right.
Chewbacca
should have. Yeah, man. You know what? I couldn't say, because we saw some flashes of them in the trailers already. I didn't know if they were going to be ongoing, carry on throughout the film. I thought it was kind of funny, the way they set up shop, the way they sort of hang with Chewie and everything. Like, they're fun. What they are. I didn't.
They're all right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all right. I think Chewie sort of does, I think, what a lot of fans are thinking, at least what I was thinking in some seats. I felt anytime they're just about to be too much in your face, too much, like, no, go over here. Just sit down. Get out the way.
Yeah.
Not now.
There is a moment in spoilers I'll bring up though that I thought was pretty good. Actually, no, I said that was the last thing. One more thing. Something that a lot of people have said, not everybody, but there's been a sizable amount of people that have said that they don't enjoy the humor that was in this movie. What do you think? Where do you stand on the humor? Do you think it was too much? Do you think it was off?
Interesting. Humor-wise, for me, when you have humor that's off, or when you have this sort of weirdly scripted moments, is when it's too often too much in at really weird, awkward timings. I think the places where we did have it here in Star Wars, I never felt once that it overruled the narrative, that it had some kind of really jagged juxtaposition and just threw everything off course, or felt really odd. I think there's one interaction late movie involving Luke that I was slightly taken aback with, but no, I didn't. I can't say I could point to the humor in this as like, oh my gosh, it was abrasive, or like I just couldn't get into it. Not for the most part, no.
All right. No, I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I actually, I was reading people's reactions before I went and saw it, and a lot of people were like, oh, the comedy. I'm like, what am I going into? Ace Ventura here? What the?
Yeah, comedy. Not comedy.
It's
fine.
It's
fine.
It's fine. Come on, it always boggles my mind when I read people's reactions and reviews like, it's too much of a kid movie. What? Look, I understand people's complaints about Jar Jar Binks. It's a horrible character. That was an attempt to bring in a kid-friendly character just gone wrong, not because you're trying to insert that kind of kid-friendliness into the movie, but it was just a bad character. It was a bad idea. These are kid movies. They're meant for everybody, but they're even geared towards kids. They're geared towards kids because they're the ones that are going to whine about all the toys, and they want all the toys.
Yep.
All right, they're geared towards kids because there's not enough nerds who are going to buy 2 copies of each toy, one to open, one to keep. There's not enough of them. There's not enough of them, so you gotta gear to it. I'm always, whenever I read that, I'm like, it's too much of a kid. What? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Hey, when did you get into Star Wars? When you were a kid. That's right. Shut up.
Like, so what do you want? I mean, Star Wars meets Judge Dredd or something, or yeah.
Right. Get like the Punisher up in this thing.
Have him over for Thanksgiving first.
Luke comes out. Screw the lightsaber. He's got a couple blasters, one in each hand. He's got a skull on his chest. There you go. It's graphic.
You just fixed everything.
Quentin Tarantino is going to do that one. Forget Star Trek. He's going to do the next Star Wars. Oh my God. I would want to see it. It would be horrible, but I'd want to see it. All right, that's it.
All right.
We're going to go into spoilers now. So follow the link somewhere around here. What, are you going to put that below?
Yeah.
All right, we'll put that below.
Good deal. Thanks for listening, people. See you right after the jump. Hey, people. Thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, is there anything to go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but if great, if you could throw some support, you can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksawmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Yeah, who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, pick up, and maybe not find. Maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.